Hi, Miss
Aren't
Guy.
you beautiful? Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Let me plug this in properly. Hold on.
Oh, can you hear me, Sky?
I just had to adjust my situation too because my phone was about to die.
Lord, jeez. Okay, you're not hearing the fan, right?
No.
Okay, good.
And I see Mr.
All right.
Michael Elliott is in the building.
Yes, the husband.
I said, baby mango, baby mango, come true, man. I love it. Baby mango, did you bring a Julie mango for me? At least a Julie. I can work with a Julie still.
Oh my gosh, Sky, you are hilarious. It is the season.
I have been dying for a real mango for the longest time. I mean, by now, if it wasn't for COVID, I'd eat about a dozen Bombay mango by now. So I'm struggling.
Listen, I need to send you some, freeze some, and send on Junker Airlines.
Please and thanks. Please and thanks.
Hello, my viewers are probably like, what is going on today? Sometimes you just have to like turn good things and make it laughter. Hey, Miss Rain. I see Rain is on.
In the building.
Yes. I was hoping to have little music, but the last time I played some music, they almost never upload my video, so we're not about that life today. Hey, Samantha.
I can freestyle because actually, in preparing to come live with you guys, I grabbed my dad's drum and I just started beating. So I think that's how I'm going to check in. That would be my check in for today.
Okay. You know, actually, you heard my thoughts.
What's that?
you heard my wish. My wish is like, I hope she brings the drums. I hope she brings the drums.
Really? Girl, it's right here. And it's actually one of my dad's drums. Yes, I have it. I'm going to play.
So welcome, guys. I know some people are logging on still. This is Art Therapy Jamaica. My name is Leslie Ambel Navis. I'm a registered art therapist. Been practicing in Jamaica for the past 11 years. Hey, Steph.
Hi.
And wanted to have the Therapy Tuesday live. It kind of spawned out of chaos and crisis, which is part of our topic today. I need to pin my comment. Yeah. So from that, I was like, I need to have a conversation with different professionals about different topics. And so every Tuesday, we have Therapy Tuesday live. And today we have a special guest, which is Miss Sky Jarrett, who is a transformational leadership coach and mindfulness instructor. Baby Mango said, dang, 11 years, yes. I don't know if it's a male or female, but yes, 11 years.
11 years
been practicing.
What?
Practicing.
Oh.
My practicing.
Yeah, don't judge
but yes.
the book by the cover, because I can't tell you how many years I have been doing this work myself, right?
So we have a special guest today, and if today is your first time joining our Therapy Tuesday, we always start and end our sessions with a check-in, and I have a checkout, but I've been changing the name to a harvest, which I like, which is something that you take away. So for those who know, I will ask our guest, Miss Sky, to think of how she's feeling, and she can use a shape, a sound, movement, or a color to show how she's feeling, or a combination. And our viewers can feel free to write how they're feeling, put their check-in in the comment section. It would be fun to hear. So Sky,
so how you guys
I'm gonna
about a little rhythm? How you guys feel about a little rhythm? Tell me how you feel about a little. I don't know what you guys, but it's been a long day for me. It feels like Thursday, the way my week terrible. So I have my dad's drum. If you don't know, my dad is the late Irvin Christopher Jarrett, Winston Jarrett. And come through with the rhythm, Steph say. Rain said, bring on the drums. So my dad was a member of the Third World Band. He passed away a couple years ago, and we have inherited one of his drums. So I'm just going to feel a vibe.
While you do that, Sky, I'm gonna paint.
Listen, man.
Love it. You're calling down some ancestors. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have no talent in beating drums, so that was, all heart, no skill, just all heart.
Heart is a talent,
Them. Yes, same way. So the drum, Leslie, because one thing for me that's very relevant in this moment is that regardless of the chaos that's around us, it's so important to me to move to the beat of my own drum, right? Just like find my beat, like Rain says, raise the vibrations and have that vibration move me, So that's how I'm feeling today. Just not searching in external places to kind of find my grounding, but to be grounded in myself, to be grounded in my own beat, right? And so that was my way of expressing. That's me literally finding my beat, finding my rhythm.
Love it. And for me, I will channel some of that, but I deliberately chose purple, and you guys know why. Sky, can you hear me? Oh, I thought the connection.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
A little bit. I can hear you now.
Yeah. I chose purple, and I wanted to add some more colors, but my feeling is I feel rejuvenated. And purple is a super color for me, so I'll just rest this right here.
You know what is crazy about that, Leslie? For some unknown reason, when our dad passed away, the purple heart became a symbol for us. Rain just put purple heart, so it is no coincidence. Like Baby Mango said, call in the dopey them. I decided uncharacteristically to play the drum, and Leslie has checked in with purple. Okay, there you have it.
Yeah, but I'm also tuned with the Jarrett family. But we can talk about that some more. So I am excited about the conversation today. Love the start. Sky, can you tell us who you are, what it is you do, and about mindfulness? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So who am I is a very long question. We could take the whole time to explain. But in terms of my profession, I am a transformational leadership coach and mindfulness instructor. And in partnership with my sister Rain, who is on the session right now, Mindful Parenting 1, we help leaders and parents live, lead, and parent with more joy, with more calm, with more impact and a sense of ease. That's something that's very important for us. And so we believe in doing great things in the world, but doing that with grace and with ease. And that's the kind of quality of life that we help our clients to foster as they are, changing the game and doing amazing things in the world. So that's a little bit of who we are. My sister and I have both had our individual stories, but a shared experience of quite a bit of trauma and loss and grief and several very turbulent life events that happened in a very short space of time, including the unexpected passing of our dad, our mom having cancer and still fighting that battle, being entrepreneurs and kind of working to build a business in this economic crisis, right? And so one thing that we, you know, Rain will tell a story and say friends would be like, but how are you guys managing though? Like seriously, like how are you coping? How are you doing this? Because it was not just that we were managing, we were actually thriving. And to build a business while going through some of those challenges, it was really astonishing to people. And the one thing that has gotten us through that, you know, they say, you know, God, if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it, right? And we felt that life had prepared us for this moment by giving us the gift of mindfulness and really allowing us to cultivate those practices in a way that could really blossom in the moments when we needed them most. Surprisingly, right? We weren't really knowingly preparing for these things to happen. We kind of just, you know, unexpectedly encountered them and felt prepared, felt equipped, felt like we have everything we need to really get through this. And so you asked for me to talk about what mindfulness is. I think multiple definitions. If you Google it, you're going to say multiple definitions. How I define mindfulness. First of all, it's both a practice as well as a state of mind, right? We can, the more we practice mindfulness is the more we experience that state of mind, right? It's kind of going to the mental gym or going to the mind gym, taking your mind to the gym. And essentially, it's having the ability to manage and master your mind in a way where you can really have mastery around where your attention goes, what you're paying attention to, and how you're tending to and responding to the experiences that life is bringing in any given moment, without judgment, and just kind of observing life and the experiences for what it is, right? Not getting pulled into the experience, but really just taking kind of an observer view of what's happening in any given moment. So that's how I think of mindfulness.
I like what you said in terms of your definition, Sky. And I know the topic today is about we're looking at mindfully thriving through crisis and chaos. But I want you to, there's something you said just now, and I want you to maybe, I love that you said that mindfulness is like a mental gym, right?
Yep.
But before we can know how to use the gym, we have to recognize why we need to use the gym and how to use the gym. So, you know, in our topic, we have the words crisis and chaos, but somebody might not identify with what that is. Can you define for us and frame for the viewers what crisis and chaos would look like and what's happening now?
In case y'all didn't get the memo, right? No, I think that's an important point, right? Because I'm working with a lot of leaders, executives in high power positions in organizations across the US primarily. And some of them are telling me that we're not in crisis. What are you talking about? Where there's no such thing as a new normal. Like life is starting to go back to what it was before. And I'm sitting there thinking, what is this person talking about though? And so I think it's just important to define characteristically. We found ourselves as a global society in the perfect storm, right? We are experiencing an economic crisis, a health crisis. If you live in the US, and depending on what side of the aisle you're on, there is a political crisis. And in recent months, we are going through a social crisis as well with the death of George Floyd, right? And so bring all those pieces together. If you take COVID alone, right? That in itself was just unprecedented, but you combine all of these different elements and you see that we are in a moment of crisis. And so what does that look like for the average person on a daily basis, right? How do you know that you're in a crisis? You're not hearing me, Leslie?
I hear you now. The internet does trip for a little bit, but we're here.
Okay,
we're good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I think that might look different for each person, but certainly fear of our lives, right? Fear of our livelihood, our job, the stability of our job. loss of revenue as an example, or maybe people have lost their job or are afraid of losing their job, or maybe the nature in which they're working has shifted in some way, having to work from home while parenting, etc. Being concerned about our health and the health and lives of our loved ones, right? I found out this week that my cousin's niece just contracted COVID. She's 17 years old, right? So this is kind of the nature of the game that we're operating in. Add on the social unrest surrounding George Floyd's death. And I think what is happening for us is now we are operating in a perpetual state of threat, where life is happening quite chaotically in waves, right? And it just feels like the waves are not ending. So a big conversation.
I will also add to that, Sky. Don't forget your point that even within the context within Jamaica, we are feeling remnants of that as well. We are dealing with COVID, and then the effects of that is financially, as you said, and people even now are still saying like they don't have work. They don't know how to survive because they can't get a job, or persons are being laid off. And then we now compounded, we were hit with the Saharan dust. So there are layers, and then we have family members who are in the States who are going through or seen as targets because of the color of their skin. So all of that, just combining the two contexts, that in itself also feels chaotic. But yeah, you were gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the factors that you've outlined are true for people who are living in Jamaica, people who are living in the US, and on a global scale as well. We've seen other countries start to participate in some of the protests around George Floyd's death. So I think, of course, certainly the feeling is spread, more widespread because of the internet and access to information. I think that's an obvious factor here. And so it doesn't feel as isolated. What you're experiencing in one part of the world doesn't feel as isolated as maybe before. What is important is whether we recognize it or not, right? These conditions are creating a perpetual state of threat. Worrying about our livelihood, worrying about our relationships, worrying about our social connections, worrying about when we will be able to engage in communities in the way that we have before. Not having the flexibility and the freedom to just easily walk out of our homes, walk into a restaurant and enjoy a nice meal, right? Just very simple things, the added pressure of what it takes to go to the grocery store, because you have to think about all the different steps to really prepare yourself with mask and gloves and sanitizer and Lysol and all of these things, right? So I think the conditions in which we are having to live our lives is creating a perpetual state of threat. And when our brain registers threat, we fall into fear, right? And fear can manifest for people in multiple ways. But what this creates is a sense of reactivity that impacts our ability to make decisions. It impacts our ability to connect with each other. It impacts our ability to manage our own emotions, right? And to self-regulate. And so people are spiraling, literally spiraling, because of this state that we are operating in. And so as a mindfulness practitioner, as a mindfulness teacher, and as a mindfulness student, because I'm continuing to explore what this means for me in this unprecedented moment, it's finding what Rain and I call our surfboard, right? As life continues to bring these waves of chaos to our experiences, we can either be drowned by the waves and crash and burn, or we can surf through them, right? And it doesn't mean that because you practice mindfulness, you're just going to soar through life, right? It means that you are able to ride the highs and ride the lows and ride the highs. Listen, life is a constant teacher, okay, baby mango? So I'm constantly learning, okay? I'm a perpetual student. The learning is perpetual, okay? So mindfulness for us has become our surfboard. It's the way that we can navigate what feels like an impossible and unending state of just I mean, you guys tell me. Craig, welcome. Tammy, what's going on, girl? Jody, I mean, do you guys find yourself feeling like, no, seriously, like what is really going on? Wait, this so I have clients in Jamaica, and I met with one of them for a session one day this week, and oh my gosh, the sweat that was dripping because all the windows were closed, the AC wasn't working that day, right? Like, you know, life is very challenging right now, and I think we find ourselves asking, really, like seriously, like WTF, like what is going on?
What is going on?
And so in those moments, you know, how do you cope? I think that's the question for all of us. How do we cope? How do we not only cope, but how do we thrive during a moment like this? And what does it mean for us to sort of find our place in what feels like a very turbulent moment that, you know, we're predicting is not going to end anytime soon, right? This is just...
So how do you use mindfulness to help thrive through chaos or crisis?
I see a question here from Baby Mango. Yeah, I have to be mindful of how worked up I get chasing behind everybody in my house, telling them to wash their hands. Yeah, it's real. And then Tammy says, truth is, Tammy says, of us experience trauma.
Trauma.
I mean, it's a very traumatic, very triggering. I went into the post office the other day, and this lady walks up to me, invades my personal 6 feet of space, and wanted to say something to me without a mask. And I was like, no, lady, could you just like
back up?
Mask, back to the car. I mean, those moments for me, when I think about the risk profile for me, having a mom who has lung cancer, right, who is going through cancer treatment right now, I can't take those chances. I can't have this stranger invading my 6 feet of personal space without a mask. No, it's not acceptable. So thank you guys for sharing and, you know, bringing us into your reality of chaos, because I think this is a shared experience for all of us. And mindfulness for me helps in huge ways in terms of cultivating a mindful way of living. And it's also in the small moments. I like to say that meditation is the seeds that I plant, and it's in the difficult moments when we need it the most that mindfulness really blossoms, right? And I have seen that and can be testament to that. And so for me, it helps to manage stress. It helps me to take perspective. It helps me to gain mastery of my mind, right? Because I think if you really break it down and how we are experiencing this moment, there are characteristics that are creating a very chaotic experience for us. But in reality, we are in a position of power. We are in a position of choice in how we choose to experience this moment. And so regardless of what life throws our way, we have the capacity to choose how we're going to respond. And so for me, mindfulness is about building the capacity, right? I was explaining this in an interview that I did yesterday. And the analogy that I used, right? It's a question of not the load that you're carrying, because I think we're all right now carrying a very heavy load for the reasons that we've described, right? Just how crazy.
And it's layered.
Like life is just lifey, you know? It's just really multi-layered, just really lifey right now, right?
Heavy.
But it's a question of how are you carrying that load? And so are you a mouse that can barely manage a corn kernel, or are you a camel who has the capacity to carry the heavier load, right? And so that's what mindfulness has been for me in terms of widening that tolerance, the window of tolerance for how much crap you can really manage. And Tammy says, how do you meditate in a chaotic environment, abusive relationships, gunshots, etc.? For some people, their environments make it easier. So, Tammy, I don't necessarily live in an environment where there are gunshots going off every day. And so I will not, you know, even attempt to say that my environment is comparable. But for me, and for my sister, and for my mom, the last several weeks of supporting as caregivers a mother who is going through cancer treatment, a mother who did brain cancer, who did brain surgery 9 weeks ago when the pandemic just started to break out. They almost canceled her surgery because it was right at the cusp of the COVID outbreak. And let me just tell you that my morning routine would entail me going downstairs. You know, I'm living a wonderful life of privilege. Yes, I recognize that. I can do my yoga and do my meditation. I realize that the minute I open my door, I don't know what life is going to bring, because something has happened to mommy. As we have an emergency or a situation which has happened multiple days for us in the last several weeks. And so I have to create a haven where before I even leave my room, before I open my door, I have to sit and do at least 10 minutes of meditation. It's as if I'm armoring up. You know, when you go into war and you get your ammunition and you put on your bulletproof vest and you say, all right, I'm ready. That is what meditation has been for me, where I have to literally armor up for the day ahead because I don't know what life is going to bring, right? We went downstairs one day to tell my mom good morning. Her eyes are bloodshot red, right? And I'm like, Mommy, how are you feeling? I don't know. I feel a little dizzy. My eyes, you know, I feel like I have a headache. When we called her doctor, the doctor said, take her to the emergency room immediately. What does that mean for our day? What does that mean for her? What does it, like, what's happening, right?
That's a shift. That's a shift.
So that is my version, Tammy, of gunshots going off, okay? I'm in a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a schedule full of client sessions. My sister comes in the room and says, where's the thermometer? Why? What happened? Mommy has a fever. What do you mean she has a fever? What other symptoms is she feeling, sis? When she breaks it down, we think mommy has COVID. Okay? And so life has to be put on hold and you have to tend to something like that. So Tammy, that's my version of what feels like gunshots going off. These are emergencies where you feel threatened, or you feel like you're not really sure what's happening and what's going on and how you're going to react to that. And so for me, it's about armoring up. It's about putting that protective shield where you can rely on the internal resources that are within each of us, that are available to each of us in any given moment, regardless of the circumstances that are happening around us. And certainly our physical well-being is number one. But for the rest of us who may not live in an environment where there are gunshots going off, which I know is a reality for a lot of people, but let me just say this. Our brain registers these social threats equally to the way we register physical threat, right? And so the experience of an individual who is living in an environment where there are gunshots going off, the experience is the same for someone who feels like their life, their health, their relationships, their work, their livelihood is at risk. So that experience is very similar, right? So you just
I have a question.
I'm just reading the comment.
She was responding, saying, she was reiterating how the practice that you engage in to manage. So I have a question to that. For those who have it difficult or are not necessarily attuned to being able to meditate or recognize aspects of mindfulness, or don't know how to set a daily intention to support themselves, what are some tips, or what can you say to encourage someone to try and, start?
Such an important distinction. Number one, meditation and mindfulness are two very different things, right? And the way to think of it, meditation is the physical practice of training our minds, right? That's the mental gym. When we sit to meditate, we are going to the mental gym, right? To train our minds. And for many mindfulness practitioners, meditation is our way of cultivating a mindfulness practice, because whatever we train our minds to do on the mat or on the cushion, so to speak, we have easier access in our day-to-day life experiences, right? So it is a very strong and dependable and foundational way to cultivate a mindfulness practice. But to that point, Baby Mango Friend says that there's a lot of other things around mindfulness. It is not just sitting in silence. And so a couple of things that I do as an example is the practice of just grounding myself, right? So for example, in moments like today when I feel like there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of, meetings happening for me, my energy level is low, but I have to show up one last time and bring the energy, right? Is to stop and ground yourself. And so you just plant your feet firmly in the ground. You feel what it feels like to have a support structure that's underneath you, right? To feel the ground. I actually went outside, put my foot in the soil and felt the earth underneath me. But we can do this sitting in our office chair, have our feet on the ground. We can do this the minute we step out of the shower. We can do this the minute we come out of our beds. As soon as we place our feet on the ground, we can feel that sense of groundedness, that sense of support, that if we fall, something is there to catch us, right? It's kind of this building a resilient mindset of just believing that we are supported. And if nothing else, having the floor beneath us that reminds us that we are supported, that we have that structure, right? It's about tapping into our internal resources. And so for me, I think of my breath. When the cell phone is dying, what do? You find your charger and you plug it in, right?
Charge it.
When my energy is dying, when my energy levels are low, I turn to my source of power, which is my breath. And I use the breath to recharge myself, right? And so that's our power source. Our breath is our power source. And we can use the breath either to give us and fuel us with energy throughout the day, or we can use the breath to help calm our situation if we're feeling a moment of anxiety, if we're feeling a moment of overwhelm. And so 2 ways to do that. First, elongating the breath. Really deep breathing will help to calm our parasympathetic nervous system. If we hold the breath or exhale for longer than we inhale, so let's say, for example, you inhale for 3 or 4, you exhale for 5 or 6, as an example, right?
Okay.
That's relaxation. If you want to give yourself an energy boost, you inhale for longer, exhale for shorter. So inhale for 4 or 5, exhale for 3 or 4. Listen, I had to do that today because I was running a little low on energy, and it works. I mean, those are just 2 examples. I try to put mindful minute tips on my IG page. I have to admit, I'm not the best at social media marketing, but I'm working on it, and I'm surrounding myself with people who are good at it and hiring the team to do it.
Don't worry, Sky. I'm not there yet. May I learn from the thing as well.
They're instrumental, but we bring on professionals who have expertise in these areas. But one of the things that we will be doing is putting out mindful minutes, which are 1-minute techniques that you can practice mindfulness beyond just traditional meditation, right? Listen, at any given moment of your day, if you are tuning into your experience with acute attentiveness, you are being mindful. So, Mr. Baby Mango Friend, I'm assuming you're a male. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry if you're not. You can eat a mango and be mindful doing it, right? You can have mindful eating. You can walk mindfully. As you're walking through your home, you can use your door frame as a threshold. And so the minute you walk through your bedroom door, you take a deep breath in, set your intentions for the day. How do I want to feel? Right? You're about to engage with a spouse or a child who is driving you crazy, and you're walking into their room to do it. Use your door frame as a threshold. And when you walk through the threshold, just take a moment to reset. Take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, reset. Those and so many more to come. So please, if you haven't already, please to follow me on Instagram and you will get more mindful minutes.
So I have an addition to that, coming from hear me, coming from the point of view of an art therapist. And in terms of grounding, one way that persons can use grounding is using art. What we did at the beginning, the check-in, was a way of grounding ourselves. So maybe even in the morning, an additional thing outside of doing the breath, if they have a book or a journal, they can do and draw a check-in at the beginning, or you're going into work and you know it might be a chaotic space. Work right now can still be chaotic if you have to travel in. What can you do to kind of ground or center yourself? Maybe just do an image, you know, just like some people draw. I've had clients draw like a temperature gauge. And so they can put little emotion faces to show where they're at on the temperature gauge. You know, it's just a check-in, a fun way to do that. I have two things with that. Sky, you have some experience in terms of art therapy and mindfulness, and I know you wanted to talk about that, but there's also a question Tammy asked about what encouraged you to begin practicing meditation. So I don't know which one you want to talk about first.
Let me take, no, there was another question about being able to ground when you can't get outside. I think I saw that. And I would just say, you can do grounding.
Oh, it wasn't a question. I think she was, Janelle. I think she was just making a statement.
So, Tammy, my experience, years and years ago, I had been introduced to Deepak Chopra, and I guess I would say I wasn't at that point in my life where I really felt like meditation was for me. I am a perfectionist, right? As human beings, we're all a product of our conditioning, and I have been conditioned to be an overachieving perfectionist. And so I brought that perfectionism to my meditation practice. And I felt like I wasn't feeling the Zen, calm, Om experience that I saw was advertised as the meditation experience. And so I just discarded it to say, meditation is not for me, mindfulness is not for me, until I learned about the practice of mindfulness, which allows us to experience life non-judgmentally, right? So without judgment. And so I'm not judging my meditation experience as being good or bad. I'm not practicing it to feel good. I'm practicing it because I don't feel good, right? Not to feel good, but because I don't feel good. Very important distinction. That kind of gave me more flexibility to kind of experiment with mindfulness outside of what I felt was a more rigid traditional meditation. I know a lot of Jamaicans practice transcendental meditation, for example. In a lot of schools, that's what they're implementing. But there's a sense of rigidity that didn't feel...
What is that, Sky? You have to break that down. What is that?
Transcendental meditation. It's just another form of meditation, but you have to be guided by a transcendental meditation facilitator. You can't just access it on your own. And it incorporates a lot more visuals and really kind of transplants you into a different realm, and you imagine that you're in
like guided imagery.
Guided
imagery.
Exactly. Not to feel good, but because I don't feel good. That's exactly it. That's why I meditate. I don't think of it as medication necessarily. Yeah, Baby Mango Friend says that transcendental meditation is very strenuous to me. I agree. So I wanted something that was a little more accessible to me. And so to answer your question, Tammy, I came across mindfulness at a point in my career where, as a high-powered consultant who was working in an organization in a very fast-paced environment, very demanding clients. I was traveling quite a bit for work. And so you put me as an overachieving perfectionist in that environment, perfect storm, right? I was literally killing myself with work and had a lot of anxiety and stress and overwhelm and just not really managing very well. Working for an organization, by the way, that prides themselves on high performance. That was the slogan. High performance delivered. Just to give you a sense of the caliber of work that we were expected to put forward. And it was just a very difficult time for me, and mindfulness helped me to, one, manage my experience, manage my anxiety, manage the stress that I was going through. And once I was able to get that under control, the benefits were more far-reaching. It brought a sense of clarity into who I was and what it meant for me to show up in a more authentic way, the kind of life I wanted to live, the quality of life I wanted to have, and really put me in a place where I felt like I could become really the captain of my ship, right? Just have more confidence and conviction and authentic power around how I was navigating life. And so with that, I just felt, you know, when you go to a really good restaurant, or you watch a really good movie or a really good show on Netflix, and it's so good that you want to share it with everybody, that's how I feel about mindfulness. It has brought so much goodness to my life. So that's a very long answer to your question, Tammy. You want me to switch now, Leslie, to talking about art therapy and my experience with that?
I'll just add something. Sky Janelle is a psychologist, and what she was saying earlier is that she uses that stay balance. She uses river stones, she says, underneath her chair if she can't have access to the ground. So I think that's also interesting.
Girl, I'm gonna studio microphone says skyfulness.
Skyfulness. There's stay balance. So yeah, the question was, Sky, what's your relationship with art therapy and mindfulness?
Okay, you guys, if you are thinking to just log off, you have to stick around for this one. So when our dad passed away in 2018, very unexpectedly, we knew him to be the healthiest man alive, and he just dropped down from a heart attack. And as a family, we were really struggling, as you can imagine, with his passing, and went to Jamaica. I think it was actually for another family member's funeral, incidentally. And I heard about the work that Leslie was doing and reached out to her and asked her if she would be willing to facilitate an art therapy session with the family. And here is one thing that I think is important. You know, if you've ever experienced grief in terms of loss of a loved one, I think whether we realize it or not, every single one of you who are on this session right now is experiencing grief in some way, because your life has changed in some way, whether you asked for it or not. The Sahara dust means that you have to stay inside, right? I mean, it's just, you have to wipe off your card. We, in small ways and in big ways, our lives have changed. And that change is a micro grief, we could say, right? And a lot of times we try
People have lost jobs.
People have lost jobs. People have lost family members. People have lost their homes. We have lost a lot in this 2020 year, right? And so I think what tends to happen is people try to rationalize their loss, right? Rationalize and plan around it, and how do I cope, and what plans can I put into place, and what is my strategy, and XYZ. And sometimes the process is more than we can cognitively really manage. And that's what we encountered with my dad's passing. We couldn't rationalize how the man just dropped down so, right? And so what Leslie brought to us was an opportunity for us to really process, how are we really experiencing this moment, and express our grief in a very creative way that gave us a creative outlet that didn't carry the additional burden of cognitively processing that. And so I think that's a very important, when Leslie and I were talking about preparing for this conversation, to me, that was a very important connective tissue between what art therapy affords as an experience and what mindfulness practices affords. It is really a shift from the cognitive processing of what's happening in our experience, and really shifting
to the emotional.
And what many of us don't realize is running through our bodies, through our central nervous system, is the kinesthetic intelligence that resides in us. You ever just, like, you encounter a person and you just say, I just get a feeling, I just get a vibe. That vibe that you're sensing is your body's kinesthetic intelligence. We were robbed at gunpoint in Jamaica during the Christmas holiday one year. And I just got a vibe. I just looked at the two men, mind you. I told them, afternoon, sir. You know, top of the afternoon to you. Did do this to them. And as I looked at them, I knew something is not right. That is our body's kinesthetic, that gut instinct. We have it and we take it for granted. And so it shifts from that cognitive processing, right, the limited capacity of our minds, and shifts and taps into this wealth of like a reservoir of resourcefulness that we don't often occupy. And I think that's what both art therapy and mindfulness practices allows us to tap into and express our way in very unconventional but powerful ways. It was a very healing experience for us, and I'm sure there is more technicality to how you would explain it, Leslie. But I can just say from the experience of a family member who was grappling with the grief, the unexpected loss of a parent, right, who we adored and love and respect so much, it gave us a way to process that grief in a really powerful way.
Well, thank you. And what I would add to that too, Sky, just like how you said, mindfulness is a mental gym. The thing about the art in dealing with chaos, you know, or having to, your family worked together as a unit to create something to process the death and the memory of your dad. And what you created, not just the process, but the talking, as well as the image that you all created together, that's something that you can keep, and that's something that's tangible, that is then used as a coping mechanism. Yes. So mindfulness can work in conjunction with art therapy. You know, you can start the mental gym and then transcend it to something that's tangible physically as a coping mechanism in the art.
You just used the word transcend. I just wanted to point that out. You know,
it wasn't even conscious.
You know.
Hey, that's a plug for you, Sky. So, Miss Sky, because we're at 6:48, we have about like 15 or so more minutes left. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions for Miss Sky about mindfulness and thriving through chaos and crisis. During this time, Sky, I will ask you, I know you talked about some mindfulness tools. Is there any that you might want to highlight? And does this change depending on the person's age and situation?
So I do think that mindfulness practices, in terms of, let me just say, fundamentally, the premises are very much the same. How we are able to access, Baby Mango friend says to beat the drum one more time. Maybe
just to beat it, man, in the end. In the end.
You missed the drumming. For some reason, I just felt pulled, and Sammy Chinny.
Yeah, she wants mindfulness.
Parents. Well, my dear friend, my sister Rain, who is a parent and a mindfulness practitioner and teacher as well. She specializes in helping both parents and children to cultivate mindfulness practices. And so I would encourage you to follow her at Mindful Parenting 1. Sis, if you're still on, please just send Sam Chinny a note. I would say the premise is fundamentally the same. The way that we access the practices as adults, as children, as parents, as professionals might be very different. And so it's just a question of application. It's a question of vocabulary. You know, how we teach Noah to meditate might be very different from how I walk my mom through a meditation, for example, right? There is a different sophistication of languaging. And so my sister has really crafted her work around what language do you use to make it really accessible to kids in a way that's playful, that they can very easily access and very easily practice those techniques. And so I think I've covered a couple exercises today, and just I think the biggest takeaway, one of the biggest takeaways for you guys is to recognize that mindfulness is beyond just sitting in silence and doing breath work on a mat, right? Certainly, cultivating a meditation practice is a really strong way to build a solid foundation. And what you practice in the mental gym by way of meditation allows you to more easily access the benefits of that during your day-to-day interactions, right? And so if you're not kind of practicing meditation, it won't be as easy for you in the moments when you need it. It's a lot easier to armor up and get ready for the day and get ready for what life has in store if you have a foundational practice. And let me just say, it does not mean that you have to sit and meditate for 40 minutes, right? Research has shown that a 7-day consistently meditating for 10 minutes a day has shown physical differences in our brains. The same is true in just one 20-minute session, right? So the key here is consistency. And if you can only spare a minute to 5 minutes in a day, then start there. But outside of meditation, there are other ways of cultivating mindfulness practices in any given moment of your day. When you bring your awareness to whatever you're experiencing in a very acute and vivid way, right? You're channeling your attention on the smell of the tea or coffee in the morning, and you're tasting the flavors as it goes down your throat. You're smelling the coffee and feeling the temperature. That's a mindfulness moment. Baby mango friend, the next time you eat a Julie mango, I implore you to do it mindfully. As you sink your teeth into the mango, I would encourage you to mindfully notice the flavor profile of that Julie mango. Is it tart or sweet, my friend? Is it juicy? Do you feel the juices running down your face? That's a mindful moment, okay?
So Miss Sky, we kind of have to wrap a little bit, but I think you have offered us some gems. And based on what Baby Mango just said about tutorials on YouTube on how to engage like this, I just want to ask you, where can you be reached, and do you have any projects? And then before you answer, I just want to say thank you guys again for tuning in. Next week, which will be our episode 10 of season 1 of Therapy Tuesdays with me, we will have Michelle Harrison, who is a psychologist, and we'll focus on unheard voices supporting children living in communities affected by violence. So that should be really good. Yeah. So Sky, where can you be reached, what projects, and then we'll do our checkouts because we only have 7 minutes left.
Yes, and quick shout out to Rachel and Chris who just joined us. And a bucket for the well. Steph says I'm gonna revisit the mindful eating. Listen, it can be a mango, it can be recipes, it can be a patty, it can be anything, it can be cherries. Actually, a very fascinating exercise is if you compare eating a grape versus a raisin, and you compare the differences in texture and flavor and juiciness. A very cool mindfulness practice. Yes, please check me out on YouTube, Sky Jarrett. I have a series of mindfulness sessions that I did at the beginning of COVID. I have just this week recorded 3 new guided meditations. One to help people jumpstart their day to have a powerful day. The second one is sort of a midday recharge, what it means to plug into the power source of your breath. And the third one is for those moments of overwhelm. Mindful chocolate. Yes, girl. Let us know how that goes. Let me tell you. Feeling the chocolate melting in your mouth. Yes, girl. Mindfully eating that chocolate. Okay?
Thanks, Em.
Cream of pumpkin soup says this was really good. Thank
That's
you
Emily.
for joining. So I will be posting those guided practices, guided meditations on YouTube. There's also sessions that you can hear me talk about what it means to build the mastery of your mind, become the master of your mind. I do a lot of mindful minutes on my IG channel, and yeah, check me out at Transcend LLC. Look me up at Sky Jarrett on YouTube. And tons more resources to come. I'm getting better at, creating these resources.
So thank you guys for joining. But before we go, we have to do our harvest or checkout activity. So Miss Sky, I don't know if it's going to change based on the time. We only have 5 minutes left. I don't want Instagram cut us off. So what's your harvest that activity that you would do, whether it's a mindfulness harvest activity or something that you'd want the viewers to take away or practice.
Hi, Dave. So certainly, okay, Baby Mango is really pushing for this drumming thing. Do you want us to just end in drumming? The harvesting is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things in any given moment, and you can do it right now. What are 5 things that you can see? 4 things that you can hear. So maybe 4 sounds in the room. Maybe 3 things that you can feel. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you're grateful for. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just count down. If you can't remember the senses, don't worry. Just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And move through the senses as you remember them. Sight, sound, hair, feel, etc. So I'm going to grab the drum, Leslie, and just, until Instagram kicks us out. Guys, I have no skill in drumming, by the way. This is all live because I never go to school. And okay, ready? All right, come, Daddy, help me out here now because I don't even know how to hold.
So while Sky, it's okay. You can put it in your lap or something. Yeah, there you go. I'll join you. I'll do a movement. Mine is a movement. So mine is. So viewers, feel free to join and put any pointers, any takeaways that you have harvesting. Join me next week at Art Therapy JA, our last session. Oh, I love it. Baby Mango is dancing. The takeaway for today is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Join me next week, 6 p.m. Jamaican time, as we talk with Michelle Harrison about unheard voices, supporting children living in communities affected by violence. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Sky. Follow her on Transcend LLC. She has more mindfulness gems for you all. Thanks, Mommy. All right.
Bye, sister.